Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS. Welcome to our daily Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope everyone is fit and fine, right? Am I audible to everyone? Right. Chaliye. Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. So we got a little bit late, so don't worry. We're going to start the session for today, right? Chaliye. Okay. Let's try to see what is the front page news for today, right? Chaliye. The front page news is related to our law minister endorses former High Court judge's view that top court hijacked the constitution. So this is the never ending tussle that is happening between the executive and the judiciary. I think everyone is aware of this particular news that has been now coming up from so many past days, and it is related to basically National Judicial Appointment Commission, where it was struck down by the judiciary as it was against the basic structure doctrine that was evolved in the Keswananda Bharti case. And recently our vice president along with union law minister has recently given a suggestion as well that in the existing collegium there shall be an executive member. So basically debate is related to whether judges shall be the authorities who would be appointing the judges, or there shall be a participation of executive or not in the appointment of judges. So this is a big question that has come up and is now very much debated. So इस चीज को लेके ना हमें बहुत ज्यादा aware होना चाहिए, because you could see in the upcoming examinations, that is in the prelims and the mains, we can get a question on like this particular terms, or we could have a question on the existing collegium system or the National Judicial Appointment Commission as well. So you need to be knowing about the basic facts related to them as well. Can anyone tell me when was this National Judicial Appointment Commission appointed by the government of India? It was through the 99th Amendment. National Judicial Appointment Commission was appointed, where it laid the foundation for 6-member committee that would be appointing the judges. So this was the basic thing that was discussed in this National Judicial Appointment Commission. But in 2015, this was declared null and void by the Supreme Court, as it said that it is taking away the independence of the judiciary. Very important to understand. It was related to that it is taking independence away from the judiciary. So as a result, this whole issue has now become a serious debate between executive and judiciary, and these are the things that are coming regularly in the newspapers. So we need to be aware who is saying what, and we need to take out the important facts related to it. So you need to be knowing about the basic structure doctrine. You need to be knowing about the Article 13, Hanji, that is judicial review. I hope everyone is aware of this particular article, that this pertains to judicial review. If I talk about Article 13, so these are the aspects that you need to be knowing related to the constitutional provisions, related to important legislations, related to important judgments. If I talk about this whole fiasco that is taking place between executive and the judiciary, right? तो ये आज की front page news है that उन्होंने भी former high court judge के view को बोला है top court hijacked the constitution. But we have to be very much prudent, logical, and we could say objective in our approach while we are attempting any question related to separation of powers. We have to be absolutely correct in relation to our judgments. So when a question comes, we are aware and ready to take down that particular question. And one thing I am making sure that in 2023 prelims you might be getting a question on National Judicial Appointment Commission. So you need to be knowing about the various facts related to National Judicial Appointment Commission, right? So this was our front page news that was very, very important. Chaliye. Okay, now this is a very interesting news that has come up, that is 10 killed in shooting near Los Angeles after festival. I think everyone is aware these type of attacks that have been coming up in USA, and there is another series of attack that has come up in the Los Angeles festival. So this is something we attribute, and we have a term related to these type of events. We call them the lone wolf attacks. I think everyone is heard about these particular terminologies. Lone wolf attacks जिसमें कोई proper किसी कोई organization नहीं है. It is an attack that is carried out by a certain individual. Maybe वो किसी चीज से प्रभावित हुआ है. He has been motivated by something that results in a killing of a large number of people by an individual. Mostly the teenagers that are very much affected and are involved in this lone wolf attacks, right? So ये चीज आपको पता होनी चाहिए related to what are the lone wolf attacks. So these are the two important news that we have to understand from today's point of paper, that is the tussle between executive and the judiciary, and the second important thing is lone wolf attacks, right? Coming on. Okay. Moving to the next part. Nothing much important in our, let's say, regional page, nothing that much important that came that we have to discuss, right? Chaliye. Then we have our this page. Nothing that much important over here. Coming to the next part. Okay. Nothing that much important over here. Now, coming to the editorial part, one thing we have to be very, very smart in our approach. That when we are seeing the editorials, there might be certain articles that are getting repeated over and over again. Like these two articles are being repeated over and over again. This is basically related to the first article, that is necessary pushback. The center should stop seeing judicial appointments as rewards for the loyalist. Now this thing you have to understand, that this is again the dispute over the collegium system and the name recommended by the Supreme Court Collegium and the High Court Collegium, right? So this is a particular article that debates on this particular thing, and we have discussed it all and all over again. So no need to go into this particular editorial, because you know all the facts that are there related to Supreme Court and High Court Collegium, right? Now the second article is related to changing politics, incompatible governors. Now this is a context article in relation to Governor of Tamil Nadu. I think everyone who has been joining our sessions is aware of this particular thing, that what is the dispute that has occurred over the Governor of Tamil Nadu versus the government of Tamil Nadu, right? So ये चीज हमें पता है कि वहां पे कुछ ऐसी चीजें थी जो स्पीच में बोला गया था कि आपको बोलनी पड़ेंगी, गवर्नर को बोलनी पड़ती हैं, but governor didn't oblige and omitted certain portions of the speech. So as a result, the CM of that particular state moved a resolution that the speech would be passed in its original form that was given to the governor. So as a result, a lot of dispute happened. Governor walked off. There were a lot of words exchanged between the government of Tamil Nadu and the governor of Tamil Nadu. So here comes the question, what shall be the relationship between the governor and the government, let's say, which is being carried out by the Council of Ministers headed by Chief Minister. So there are a lot of recommendations that have come up. What shall be the role of responsibility of the governor? How shall governor be acting? And what shall be the scheme that should, let's say, dictate how the governor shall be appointed? So there have been lot of committee, lot of recommendations that have said कि किस तरीके से governor को appoint करना चाहिए. So these two articles are related to these two things only. Just you need to know the basics. As a result, your two editorials would be covered, right? Chaliye. Now, the important article that we have discussed or we need to discuss is the reminder of the flaws in India's urbanization policies. Now, this thing is interesting. Now, here are the question that comes into our mind, that this question is related to increasing population in the urban areas. Increasing population in the urban areas. And if the population is increasing, we have to increase the urban infrastructure. We have to increase the urban infrastructure. So here the question that comes to our mind is, if we have to talk about urban infrastructure, we have to look at from where that funding could come from. From where that funding shall come from in order to finance this urban infrastructure. Now there have been certain reports that say that if we have to see the population of India and if we have to see what amount of funds that would be required in order to meet the ever growing urban infrastructure, then we at least require 70 lakh crore. Very important. This is the amount that has been estimated by the World Bank, that we shall be requiring 70 lakh crore. But we know that there have been particular schemes of the government that are basically aimed at increasing the urban infrastructure, like we have the Smart Cities Mission, we have the Amrut scheme, we have the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana as well. And if we look at their total corpus, it is around 2 lakh crore. So that amount of funding that is required, that is, let's say 70 lakh crore, it can't be fulfilled by this particular thing. So सबसे पहली डिबेट आती है कि क्या हमें किस तरीके से हमें फंडिंग करनी चाहिए in urban institutions की. So one thing that comes, and it is a very very obvious solution that is said by the World Bank report, कि urban centers shall be self-sufficient in order to provide for their urban infrastructure cost. भाई सबसे ज्यादा अगर रेवेन्यू प्राप्त हो रहा है, if we say revenue is maximum collected from these urban institutions, so they shall be adequate enough that they are able to meet their cost. But we have to look for alternative paths apart from that funding based mechanism. This is the particular scheme of this particular editorial कि हमें इनसे अलग कुछ देखना होगा. कैसे? मान लो, let's say X amount of fund is being collected from urban areas. We have to make sure that 10% of it is sent back. 10% of the income tax that has been collected from the urban areas is sent back in order to finance their urban infrastructure needs. This is the first alternative that this particular editorial is trying to say. The second important aspect of urban infrastructure, apart from giving back 10%, is to urban governance. Very important. अगर गवर्नेंस बेटर होगी तभी आप फंड्स बेटर यूटिलाइज कर सकते हो. तो द सेकेंड इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इज द अर्बन गवर्नेंस. सो इन दिस रिगार्ड, रेगुलर इलेक्शंस शुड बी हेल्ड इन सिटीज एंड दे मस्ट बी empowered through transferring of 3 F's. Now you can mention these 3 F's in your answers as well, that is finances, functions and functionaries. Very important. You can utilize this in your answers, that you have to go for funds, functions and functionaries if you have to make sure that your urban governance, urban infrastructure is adequate enough. So these are the two alternative paths that this particular editorial wants to say. Along with it, they are saying if you have to make sure for the urban development, that development shall not be coming from the, let's say, top down approach. It cannot be coming from that, because that leads to a policy paralysis. The proper approach shall be from the bottom itself. It shall be from the bottom up approach. So this is the basic theme of this particular editorial that tries to focus upon, let's say, one is we have to meet the ever growing demand of urban infrastructure. Adequate funds are not enough right now, because if we talk about the total corpus that is being there from the 3 schemes that we discussed, it is around 2 lakh crore only. And if we have to meet the corpus of 70 lakh crore, then we have to make sure that the income tax collected is given back to urban areas, certain portion, that is 10%. Along with it, you have to focus on urban governance, and along with it, you have to make sure regular elections are taking place, and along with it, you have to make sure that you are working on the principle of these 3 F's, that is funds, finances, functions and functionaries. So this is the theme of this particular editorial. Hanji, I think everyone is with me and is able to understand this basic article, what it tried to say in relation to reminder of the flaws in India's urbanization policies, right? So आपको GS paper 1 में, let's say you can get a question as well on this particular aspect. जैसे इंडिया की पॉपुलेशन अब बढ़ चुकी है, आई थिंक एवरीवन इज अवेयर ऑफ दिस, दैट वी आर नंबर 1 इन पॉपुलेशन. So as a result, more and more population is increasing from rural to urban areas. Let the new census come कि ज्यादा population urban areas में आ रही है. अगर urban areas में ज्यादा population आ रही है, let's say, so how can we meet the demand of this new urban infrastructure that we have to cater to? So these are the things that you can utilize in your answers, and it is a very, very important question from a GS paper 1 perspective, that is GS paper 1 society, right? Hanji, are you with me or not on this particular thing? Type yes if you are able to understand this, right? Chaliye, moving to the next part now. This particular text page is related to dragon tightens its grip. Now this is basically related to China. The thing it wants to say, India imports from China touched a record high while exports to China record fell to 5-year low. It has widened the trade deficit. Electrical machinery and mechanical appliances were the most imported goods by India from China. India's dependency has remained high for quite some time now. However, India is not alone that is dependent on imports from China. Indian neighbor countries are also, we could say, more and more dependent on China as well. Now, let's try to see. They have wonderfully explained it through graphs. What is the scenario between India and China if we talk about the bilateral trade? I think everyone could see over here. This is China's share in Indian imports. I think everyone could see from 2002 to 2022 how this particular index has been increasing. I think everyone can make this particular scene that how China's share is increasing if we talk about overall India's imports. Now, coming back to India's exports, can you see at what point we are over here? We have fallen from 2010 where we had the highest peak. Now we are at this particular part. That means India is importing more from China, but India is exporting very little less to China. Now let's try to see what are the areas that we import, exports. The most important thing that we have to understand that bigger the box, higher is the amount of exports. That is iron ores, petroleum oils. These are the things where we are exporting more if I talk about China. But if I talk about the imports, I think the situation is pretty much clear that we are importing electronic integrated circuits, laptops, semiconductor devices, telephone sets and parts. So this is the basic thing related to mechanical and electrical appliances that we are importing the most. I think everyone could make this particular situation. Now, coming back to the stage where not only India's imports are increasing from China, but other countries as well. Let's try to see Pakistan. Pakistan in 2011 and Pakistan in 2021. It was 14.8, now it is 28.3. If I talk about South Africa, 13.8, now it is 20.6. If I take about Nepal, it has slightly increased 11.7 to 15.1. So, if I talk about India's neighbors and certain BRIC countries, there I can see that imports are increasing from these countries as well. So, we have to understand this particular situation as well and see how much China is importing or exporting or manufacturing, right? अब यहाँ पे देख सकते हो कि लैपटॉप्स की कैसे डिमांड बढ़ी है, सेमीकंडक्टर डिवाइसेस की कैसे बढ़ी है और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक इंटीग्रेटेड सर्किट्स की कैसे डिमांड हमारे चाइना के ऊपर बढ़ी है. So these are the things that you have to understand. It is basically understanding the very basic thing that we are depending more on China. And we are importing more. As a result, it has increased the trade deficit. Very important. It has increased the trade deficit with China. Not only India is a part of this increased trade deficit, but all the other countries like Nepal, we could say Pakistan is also dependent heavily on the China. So this is the basic theme of this particular text page. I think everyone is able to understand. Right. Coming to the next part. Okay. Now this is certain political news. We don't have to go over there, right? Okay. Nothing that much important over here. Again, this is a political news, right? Now, one thing we have to understand, recently at a conference that was organized by the Intelligence Bureau, PM has called for prison reforms and repeal of obsolete laws. Very important. What a Prime Minister has said, that he has called for prison reforms and repeal of obsolete laws. One thing that the government wants, that to increase the security framework, security architecture, focus on biometrics and go for certain prison reforms. This is what our government is trying to do, and they are saying we have to repeal certain obsolete laws. And here there was also discussion on that we have to enhance cooperation between the state police and the central agencies to leverage capacities and share best practices. So one thing they are also saying, there needs to be better coordination. Let's say if they have to check in for the internal security angle about the central agencies, about the state police, there needs to be a coherence in them, and there needs to be better understanding so that the information is shared very easily and it is easily disseminated so that we are able to act upon it very, very quickly. One thing in this regard you have to understand, that after the 2008 attacks at Mumbai, one particular thing was set up, that was MAC. I think everyone is aware, shall be aware of this. This is MAC, Multi-Agency Center, where it tries to have a coordinated approach from the intelligence that is coming out from the various inputs, then it is disseminating to the required agency. So this thing you have to understand about the Multi-Agency Center, that is MAC, right? So ये important चीज थी जो आपको इससे समझनी चाहिए. Currently ये बहुत important चीज है, because these type of questions you can expect, because recently there were certain articles coming from prison reforms where we see that a lot of people that are in jails are under trials. They do not have the resources, the condition of the jails. There is a basis of caste discrimination as well as in prison. So we have to go for all those things in order to make sure that we have a better healthy prison reforms. और हमारा जो prison structure होना चाहिए, that shall be a rehabilitative one, कि एक बार person चला गया उसके बाद वो एक rehab की form में आए. That shall be in the form of a rehab system for that particular inmate who is going to the jail, right? So ये एक important चीज है जो आपको समझनी है. PM calls for prison reforms and repeal of obsolete laws. Correct? चलिए. Moving to the next part. Okay. Now this is very interesting. Now this particular news is saying economy at risk from move to clean energy. Let's try to see what this news wants to say. 60% of our lending is to the mining sector is for oil and gas extraction, while 1/5 of the manufacturing sector is for petroleum refining and related industries. Electricity production, that is the largest source of emissions, accounted for 5.2%, but only 17.5% of this is to pure play renewables. Now here the basic theme is that let's say कि हम पेरिस गोल्स को अचीव करना चाहते हैं, हम रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी से ज्यादा एनर्जी प्रोड्यूस करना चाहते हैं, बट वन थिंग वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड राइट नाउ, जो कोल का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जनरेशन में परसेंटेज है वो है 70%, एंड वी आर ट्राइंग इट टू रिड्यूस टू बाय टू 50% बाय 2030. One thing this news article is saying that we are lending, yes we are lending, but we are not lending to the renewable energy concept. हम उन इंस्टीट्यूशंस को नहीं दे रहे हैं जहां पे ज्यादा पैसा जो है या ज्यादा फाइनेंस वो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी में जा सके. वी आर नॉट डूइंग दैट. हम ज्यादा किस में दे रहे हैं? कोल सेक्टर में दे रहे हैं, माइनिंग सेक्टर में दे रहे हैं, ऑयल एंड गैस एक्सट्रैक्शन में फंडिंग प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं. अगर हमें अपने गोल्स को अचीव करना है, if we have to see we are able to achieve our Paris goals, we are able to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, we have to make sure कि हम जो फंडिंग प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, फाइनेंसिंग दे रहे हैं इन कंपनीज को, वो ज्यादा किन को प्रोवाइड करें? हम रिन्यूएबल कंपनीज को प्रोवाइड करें. एंड इन दिस कंटेक्स्ट, particularly this week, RBI is going to launch sovereign green bonds. I think you would be able to now better connect it. This is the first step in making sure that finances are going towards renewable projects. So in this regard, our RBI would be issuing sovereign green bonds so that the money financed from it could be used for renewable energy projects. This is the basic theme of this particular news that we have to understand, that what is our dependency on coal, how much it is being generated. If we have to finance to renewables, how are we doing it? That is through RBI. Let's say it has taken the initiative. Along with it, we have to understand कि कोल के ऊपर हमारी डिपेंडेंसी ज्यादा है फिलहाल के लिए, बट आने वाले टाइम में हम इसके ऊपर कम कर सकते हैं. एक चीज और समझनी जरूरी है. Whenever India says that it will shift to renewables, it has always come up with a particular, let's say, a certain disclaimer that it need finance. It need finance. This is the finance that we are raising in our country, that is in our domestic source of funding. But we are also looking from finance from developed countries as well, so that we are able to shift towards clean energy. And one thing we have to understand, that the clean energy is the energy for the future, and let's take out various policies that are directed towards achieving this clean we could say energy. Very important thing in this regard is the launch of the new mission, that is National Green Hydrogen Mission. हाँ जी, कितनों को पता है इस मिशन के बारे में जो अभी रिसेंटली लॉन्च हुआ है, एंड गवर्नमेंट हैज एलोकेटेड नियरली 20,000 crore for this national green hydrogen mission, because this green hydrogen, when it is produced, it produces steam first of all. Second thing, it is made by the electrolysis of water. Third, the energy that is used for producing electricity is coming from renewable sources of energy. So as a result, our country is shifting towards clean energy, and we have to make sure कि हमारी funding भी फिर renewable energy projects की तरफ जाए. So that is why it's saying economy पर अभी भी risk में है जब उसे move करना है clean energy की तरफ. क्यों? क्योंकि ज़्यादातर funding कहाँ पे है? ज़्यादातर funding कहाँ पे है? वो ज़्यादा oil extraction mining projects की तरफ ज़्यादा है. I hope you are able to get this particular point. Very good, Puneet. You have almost said the exact figure, but make sure when you write in your answers, you can say as well that it is an investment of around rupees 20,000 crore. So that can also serve your purpose, right? So this is the particular needs that you have to understand, right? Okay. Nothing that much important over here. Okay. This was a front page news that gunman kills 10 during Lunar New Year Fete in USA. I have already told you about the lone wolf attacks, that you could be having a question on this in prelims or as well as in mains, right? Israel Palestine issue तो चलता ही आ रहा है. Okay. Now this is a very sad news that is happening across the neighboring country, that a Hindu girl was abducted and raped in Pakistan. It is basically about the atrocities that are being faced by the minority communities in other part of the country, right? तो ये चीज़ बड़ी वो है, तो इसमें देखना चाहिए कि हम minorities shall be given the protection, they shall be have the freedom, and such atrocities shall not be committed against the minorities, right? So ये एक important news है अगर हम world affairs की बात कर रहे हैं. Okay. So this was it, and yesterday we lost our quarter-final match possibly against New Zealand. That was a little bit of heartbreak, but the important thing is this hockey stadium was being held at the Birsa Munda, very largest hockey stadium that was being made at Birsa Munda in Rourkela, Odisha, right? So this is it from today. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Do join us tomorrow, same time, 9 AM. Just remember what are the issues that are going on. Governor issue, our executive and judiciary issue. Today's article was one very important related to this urbanization thing. We have to understand China's imports from China are increasing, resulting in a trade deficit. Prison reforms we have to talk about, and our economy is majorly going towards, let's say, clean energy. It has to make sure that the funding is also going towards clean energy rather than the, let's say, not so clean energy, right? Okay guys, this is it from me from today. Thank you so much for joining us. We shall see each other tomorrow, same time, 9 AM. Till then, thank you. Bye bye.